What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I already made a video earlier today, a fiery, passionate video about reacting to the comments that Brian Flores made in regard to George Floyd and the protests. But I decided to make another video, or I am deciding to make another video right now, because I was reading through some articles, and there's this one in particular that got me hype. From Kristopher Knox from Bleacher Report. That's the writer, Kristopher Knox from Bleacher Report, and the assertions that he made. Okay, so what is the article that he wrote about? Well, he talks about the scapegoats for the biggest scapegoat for every team over the past, whatever decade or whatever this article is. I think it's over the past decade, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Over the last decade, right? So over the past 10 years, every team's biggest scapegoat. And so, if you guys know me and everything, I've been saying in regard to Brian Flores that in a couple years from now, somewhere around his 3 to 3.5 year mark, at least this is based off of the data from how long Stephen Ross tends to keep his coaches, Brian Flores is going to get scapegoated when things don't pan out the way that he is hoping for. But so I thought that, I was like, man, this is going to be really interesting. I'm curious to see who this guy thinks the biggest scapegoat for the Dolphins has been over the past decade. Okay, so I look into it. It's not totally surprising, but they go with Adam Gase, or he goes with Adam Gase. Now, I do agree, actually, with the basic premise, that Adam Gase is one of the biggest scapegoats over the past decade. Because what is a scapegoat, right? A scapegoat is when you have somebody else take the fall for your inadequacies or what have you, right? So I agree to some degree with the basic premise. And why? Because when you look at the 3 years that he had the great season, the very first season where we went 10-6 and went to the postseason, and then he had some down years, a couple down years after that, which was due to a bunch of things, a series of events, a whole bunch of shit that he had absolutely no control over. But we'll get to that in a minute, right? And then Stephen Ross made a calculation and said to himself that this choice in Adam Gase was the wrong one. I completely disagree. I think his decision was premature. I don't think he gave him time to allow, what he was building to come to fruition, right? But anyway, and so he made that calculation, and then he scapegoated Adam Gase for his perceived personal failures. Okay, and additionally also because he went and talked to Gase and said, hey, I want you to tank the 2019 season so we can get a quarterback. Those reports were out there, and they detailed that, right? And so Adam Gase refused and then subsequently got fired, right? And so then he brought in Brian Flores, who absolutely acquiesced, and then they tanked 2019 season. Again, wins are irrelevant, because even if they would have gone undefeated, it still would have been irrelevant. It would have been miraculous and astounding and phenomenal and all those other things as well, but it also would be irrelevant to the fact that they implemented the basic philosophies of tanking, clearing out your roster of talent, leadership, etc., essentially making them a, backup squad quality team, expansion level team, etc., but also acquiring draft capital and cap space through doing all that. And so part of that is trading players away as opposed to necessarily just cutting them, right? And so they implemented those philosophies, and they were garbage last season, right? And so they absolutely tanked the 2019 season. And so that's relevant to this conversation because, which you will see in a minute. And so this writer, Kristopher Knox, thinks that Adam Gase was the biggest scapegoat over the past decade. Well, let's see what he has to say. Though head coach Adam Gase did help deliver the Miami Dolphins' lone playoff appearance of the last decade, he is also largely responsible for their state of irrelevance. Okay, I totally disagree with that, but let's hear what he has to say. One, they may be climbing out of thanks to the drafting of Tua Tagovailoa and a strong offseason. Okay, pause real quick right there. As you guys know, I find all of these declarative statements that the Dolphins are going to unquestionably be like leagues better than they were last year and like massively competitive because of the moves that they made and so on and so forth. There is absolutely no guarantee whatsoever that any of these things are going to work out. There's also no guarantee that they're going to fail, right? We just don't know because there's no evidence yet. And there are also a lot of other data points like things going on with the pandemic and how the world around us is devolving and breaking apart, etc. That and the fact that they're not able to have on the field time, their off-season programs are being hindered. They're already going to have the issues of like an entirely new coaching staff, almost an entirely new roster with young and inexperienced players for the most part. I believe a lot of the players that they picked up are overpaid as far as like free agents and were reaches as far as like Noah Igbenogene and the long snapper, etc., etc. So they have all of these hills that they have to climb. Okay, and it's absurd to me that people make these declarative statements that, oh, they got Tua, they are going to be the shit for the rest of the time, and that's all there is to it. Okay, dude, well, let's see how it fucking plays out, all right? But let's see what else he has to say. Gase's Dolphins went 10-6 in 2016 and reached the postseason. Facts. However, they went just 13-9 over the next 2 years, prompting the trading of quarterback Ryan Tannehill and Miami's 2019 tank job. Okay, well, right there, he does acknowledge that they tanked in 2019, so he gets some credit there. And it is also factual that we went 13-19 over the next 2 seasons, and then they did trade away Ryan Tannehill. Those things certainly are factual. But it is also not including a bunch of extremely relevant content or context. Did Gase ruin Tannehill? Question mark. That's debatable. Okay, sure. And Tannehill did miss 24 games because of injury during the Gase era. Okay, pause there. Is that Gase's fault? Did Gase make Ryan Tannehill's ACL get injured? That's an absurd thing to imply at the very least, which is what he's doing here. Second of all, is that Tannehill's fault? No, not even close. That's football. It just so happens that when Calais Campbell's helmet collided with the side of his fucking knee, it caused damage, so his ACL tore. It's not even close to either of their faults, yet they both get blamed for that. And this dude is trying to blame not only Adam Gase for the injury, or at least implying it, but then also that he wasn't able to maximize his potential during that time in which he was injured, during those 24 games in which he was injured. That doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever. And it also ignores the very important context that minus last year with his time with the Titans, prior to that and prior to his injury, 2016, the year that we went to the playoffs, which was in large part because of the play of Ryan Tannehill, he was having the best season of his career, which was a pretty impressive season, considering that his previous seasons were actually pretty fucking solid. So let's take and dispel, once again, the myth of Ryan Tannehill not being a good quarterback. Okay, so let's see. 2012, when he comes into the league, he played 16 out of 16 games after being thrust into the fucking fire immediately. Let's note a couple of his challenges along the way. He didn't have a fucking head coach in Joe Philbin that really even believed in him from the beginning. So he was just kind of half-assed with him. But his head coach and coordinators were constantly changing. He didn't have an offensive line, was the most sacked quarterback in the league, right? I gave you the comparison between Dan Marino and him. Dan Marino got sacked like maybe 20 times more than Ryan Tannehill did, okay, or has to this point in his career. And he's retired. And there's only like a 20 sack difference, okay? Despite the fact that Ryan Tannehill has played in far less games. Far less games. Why? Because his offensive line was garbage for the first 4 years of his career. He didn't have weapons around him. Yet, okay, first year, He had 282 completions, a 58.3. Okay, it's not terrible, but you certainly want better. But under those conditions, especially as a rookie quarterback, that's pretty solid. 3,298 yards, 6.8 average, 12 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and a 76.1 rating. Not bad. Not bad at all. And he actually threw 2 rushing touchdowns on as well with 211 yards. Okay, 2013, 16 out of 16 games played, 355 completions, 60.4% completion percentage. So he's increasing his stats. So he's improved in passing yards as well, 3,913. Was about the same in average, 6.7. Improved in his touchdown to interception ratio a bit though, 24-17. Improved on his passer rating, 81.7. Had 40 rushing attempts, less attempts but for more yards, 238 with a 6 average and another score. 2014, 16 out of 16 games, 392 attempts, 66.4 average, 4,045 yards, 6.9 average per attempt, 27 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and a 92.8 passer rating, 56 rushing attempts, 311 yards, and another score. Wow. Looks like this dude's posting up solid numbers, even though being the most sacked quarterback in the league, constantly improving and doing absolutely everything he needs to do to put the team in position to win. Strange. 2015, 16 out of 6, and staying fucking healthy. 16 out of 6, despite the beating he's taking, despite having played, the end of one season, I believe it was 2016, or 15, I believe. I can't remember which, but he was playing the end of the season pissing blood because of the beating he was taking. But anyway, 16 out of 16 games, 363 attempts, 61.9% completion percentage, 4,208 yards, 7.2 average, with 24 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and an 88.7 rating, 32 rushing attempts, 141 yards, and one touchdown. 2016, 13 games. Obviously, he got injured, missed the last 3. Excuse me. But he was on pace for one of his most efficient years ever, with 261 attempts, a 67.1 percentage. That was his best until his time with the Tennessee Titans. 2,995 yards, obviously not best, but he was on pace to be able to break his best. 7.7 average, which is his best until his time with the Titans. 19 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, a 93.5 rating, his best until his time with the Titans. 39 rushing attempts, 164 yards, and a touchdown. Obviously missed 2017 due to injury. 2018 was also, partly missed some time due to injuries. He had the shoulder injury, the elbow injury, some other stuff because the offensive line got hurt, and then everything just fell apart from there. But real quick, 2017, to tie it in with Adam Gase and stuff too, why did that season go wrong? One, because Ryan Tannehill was out. I agree that bringing in Jay Cutler wasn't a good idea, and that I would have taken Colin Kaepernick, but obviously that wouldn't have happened because the racist owners were making sure that he got fucking blackballed and continue to do so, even though they say, oh yeah, he could come back if somebody wants to bring him in, but they're not gonna. And he was really the best option that they had, especially when you consider that they had familiarity with each other. He knew the system. It was the best move with the cards he was that he had available. Okay. And so he did the best that he could do. But then, they had the fucking hurricane that displaced him. They had to spend a week in California. They had linebacker go AWOL before their first game. They had to fire their offensive line coach for being a cokehead, and doing it on team facilities. They had to travel more in the first few weeks of the season than any team in the league had to, than most teams in the league rather, had to travel all year. They missed out on their bye week and had to play 16 straight games. It was all these things that mounted up that they had no control over. The NFL would not let them bring their London game back home and insisted that they have to do that. Like, it's absurd to fucking put blame on Tannehill or fucking Adam Gase. Yet people do. Okay, whatever. You're fucking morons. Okay? And then in 2018, they finally had, after 3 good fucking really good drafts, which I'm going to get into in a minute, they were, the first 3 games were undefeated, 3-0, because they had the pieces in place. But injury after injury after injury, and they just couldn't overcome it, including injuries to their quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. And that's why they had a down 2018 season. If they were given another year Another year. If Adam Gase was given the 2019 season, we'll never know this, of course, because we can't turn back time, but I'm virtually as sure as I can be, from what I saw and based off of the players. Again, we'll get into the drafts that they had in a minute, but based off of all the information that I have, and whatnot at my fingertips, I believe the direction they were going in was phenomenal. And if they would have been given the 2019 season, they wouldn't have fucking tanked, and they would have been massively relevant, pushing for the playoffs. They just needed to get guys healthy and have another good draft. Anyway, but then let's look at Tannehill from 2019. Okay, he played in 12 games, started 10 of them because obviously Marcus Mariota started the beginning of the season, but I told you guys he was going to take over. But then when he got in, he had 201 completions, a 70.3 completion percentage, 2,742 yards with a 9.6 average, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a 117.5 rating with 43 rushing attempts, 185 yards, and 4 rushing touchdowns. 4 rushing touchdowns! Jesus Christ. Yes, okay. Did he have a team around him? Absolutely. Does he have Derrick Henry, one of the best running backs in the league, and a great offensive line and other weapons around him? Absolutely. But every single fucking quarterback needs that. Why do you think Tom Brady got Rob Gronkowski to come out of retirement to go with him to fucking Tampa Bay? Because he knows he needs fucking shit around him, especially at his elevated age. Like, it's fucking absurd. Okay, let's go ahead and fucking, real quick, in the postseason, he played 3 games, right? Got them to the AFC Championship game, 36 completions, a 60% completion percentage, 369 yards, a 6.2 average, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, a 98.5 rating, 13 rushing attempts for 35 yards, and a touchdown. So solid numbers in the postseason too. I mean, okay, so there's Ryan Tannehill's numbers. Let's look at the Adam Gase years. We already know that he got us 10-6 in his first season, and the first postseason, appearance that we've had since the 2008 season, and the only one we've had in fucking, I don't know, at this point, what, over a decade, whatever it is. Okay, but let's look at his drafts. Okay, so his first one, round 1, Laramie Tunsil, an amazing player. Obviously no longer on the Dolphins because of this fucking fool-ass regime that we have now, but he's a stud. He just got paid as one of the highest players, and he's a generational talent at left tackle. And if Bill O'Brien doesn't completely fuck the Texans, he can be an amazing building block for them. Let's see. Then we have Xavier Howard, who is obviously an amazing player, but touted as one of the, stars and studs and cornerstones of the current team, which I think he should be, rightfully so, etc., etc. But he's a fucking stud. So you got 2 studs in round 1 and 2 of Adam Gase's very, 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 very first draft. Then you have Kenyon Drake, who's obviously also not on the team, but is doing great things for the Arizona Cardinals right now. so that's 3 hits, including 2 fucking studs from your first and second round. Sounds like they're doing pretty fucking good so far. Leonte Crew, he's just kind of been whatever and is kind of washed out, but you can't hit on everything. That's round 3, their second pick. Jakeem Grant is still on this team, expected to be a contributor, and has done some good things for us, and was certainly expected to be a much larger contributor in Adam Gase's whatever, but I definitely consider that to be a hit. As he has had some injuries, so that is a little concerning, to be fair, but he's still fucking performing well and has still put up some solid numbers, done some really good things for us in the return game, etc. Jordan Lucas, kind of a wash, whatever. Brandon Doughty, Thomas Duarte. So half of that draft class is kind of a wash, but half of it are hits, including a couple studs. Then you have the second draft, 2017, Charles Harris. I agree, is looking far more like he's going to be a bust, but you have a little bit more leeway going into that second draft after you had such a great first one. Raekwon McMillan, great linebacker. He struggles in coverage. He did have that knee injury, so that could have affected that for sure, but still to me a hit, and he's definitely great in the run game and certainly expected to be a staple of this current team. Cordray Tankersley still technically is on the Dolphins, although to me is probably more of a bust wash than anything. Isaac Asiata obviously ended up being, more on that bust wash. But okay, so you missed on your first. The second was a hit. The third was, a solid, backup for a minute, but it's kind of washed out. The next one kind of a wash. But then you got Devon Godshaw, who's been great for us, right, and is expected to be in the 5th round. So you're getting back to, close to the 500 mark there. Vincent Taylor was great for us. There was no reason the Dolphins should have got rid of him. That was a dumbass fucking move, okay, but then has been performing well for the Bills, if I'm not mistaken. And then Isaiah Ford, who is still currently on the team and at least right now projects to be, part of that wide receiver room going forward. But has certainly done some good things in his limited time on the field. So I consider that to be another hit. So at least half that draft class was hits. Okay, then you have the 2018 draft, Minkah Fitzpatrick, okay, who is a stud and played absolutely phenomenal for us in his first season in 2018, but then also for the Pittsburgh Steelers when they put him back to his natural position. And there's some reports, Alan Pupar put some shit out, a report that he wrote, or an article that he wrote about how, looks like Minkah Fitzpatrick is cool with playing multiple positions in the secondary, which seems to be a departure from how he did, or what he was saying here. No. First and foremost, we drafted him to be primarily a free safety, which was his primary position in college. He also happened to play a lot of slot corner, which he was comfortable with, and he actually has the frame and skill set to play because it's similar to free safety. And then he also played a little bit of boundary corner in college as well. That's what he did for the Dolphins when they drafted him, but played primarily as free safety, which was their primary drafting position, okay, for him. But then, and he was perfectly fine with that. And when Adam Gase was here, and when they drafted him here for those reasons, etc., and he played boundary corner mostly out of necessity, okay, because we didn't have somebody opposite Xavier Howard, all right? But then, and he was perfectly fine with that. And he's, has said that consistently. What he was not fine with was the apparent tanking philosophy that the Dolphins were undertaking. And then also by shipping away like all of their good players. And then also by misusing him, by then trying to then also throw onto his plate the strong safety position and then linebacker. That is not even a position in the secondary. And multiple linebacker positions, not even just one. That's absurd. That's absolutely fucking absurd. Okay? So, I mean, that's just total fucking horseshit. And all of this stuff about, he was just crying and this, that, and the other. You can go fuck yourselves if that's what you think. He was smart and did the right thing. Anyway, and so we'll see. We'll see how his career goes on. We'll see how Tannehill's career goes on. Tunsil's with the Texans, etc. And then we'll see how the Dolphins play out. But let's continue on. Mike Gesicki, who is expected to be like the Dolphins' #1 tight end now, who, this current regime is taking credit for. They get some credit, okay, but they don't get all the credit. Gase drafted him to be that go up and get it, catching tight end. But before he could earn the reps there, one, it was his rookie season, first and foremost. Two, he did have some people ahead of him on the depth chart. And three, he very much needed to work on his blocking. He is far better at blocking now and more willing to do it because of Adam Gase. Just like Adam Gase helped Devontae Parker finally break out and can be credited for a portion of that because it was his regime and his coaching staff that finally got Devontae Parker to eat right and train right and sleep right, etc. Okay, well, let's see. Mike Gesicki, great pick. Minkah Fitzpatrick, Mike Gesicki, great picks. Jerome Baker, great pick. Durham Smythe, I like that pick, and I think he's a good compliment in a tight end room, but obviously still on the team and projected to be part of that room going forward. Kalen Ballage, I like him, but again, I think he's a very limited situation back. Like, I think he's short down and distance kind of thing, third down kind of back, whatever. Short yardage, goal line. That's what I'm saying. Short yardage and goal line kind of back. Not necessarily a third down back or an every down back. Cornell Armstrong, whatever. Quentin Poling, whatever. And Jason Sanders, obviously still our kicker. So at least half that draft was fucking hits with at least one stud, if not a couple other, really good players in Gesicki and Baker for sure. So, okay, it's just inarguable to say that those drafts are good. You can't argue that. Gase had great drafts and was building this team in a great direction. He also didn't want to do what the Dolphins did this past offseason and go overplay for players and be big spenders in free agency. He wanted to pay players in-house, and he wanted to be, careful about the people that he picks up in free agency. He wants to be real selective. He wants to get high upside and cheap players. Okay, and then, but just real quick, let's look at the first draft for this regime. Christian Wilkins, underwhelming to say the least. Michael Dieter, complete trash. Andrew Van Ginkel spent half the season on IR and had a handful of solid plays and flashy plays. A handful at the very end of the season, and a couple of those at least came on special teams. Okay, that's great, and I hope he can improve, but that's not something to rave about. Isaiah Prince not even on the fucking team anymore and wasn't very good. Chandler Cox, he's kind of an enigma to me because I actually kind of like him. I thought he showed some good things when he was on the field, but they just decided not to use him and stuff like that. And to me, it's because that's more evidence to show that they were trying to make sure that the team was not in position to win, especially because then they use a linebacker to catch a pass as a fullback when they had a fucking fullback. And then they use Christian Wilkins, their first round defensive tackle, who was, for the most part, garbage at his own position, as a fucking fullback to catch a touchdown that he almost fumbled away, when they just could have used the fullback. So either they're saying that they don't think he's good and that they don't think that their own pick is ready, or they kept him out, which I actually don't think is the case, because he showed some good things when he was on the field. I think it was just more of, hey, we are not actually trying to really win a lot of games because we're not going to get a high pick. And then you have Myles Gaskin, who was, inactive for the first half of the season and then didn't do very much of shit when he got in and then got injured. And in this draft, Tua Tagovailoa, first of all, I'm not going to go through it, but a lot of these guys, including Tua, have, injury histories. I think Noah Igbenogene, and Blake Ferguson, the long snapper, I think those guys were reaches for sure. Even the, Austin Jackson and Robert Hunt and stuff, you guys know I would have done things way differently. I would have taken the top 2 offensive linemen with our first 2 picks, the top safety in the draft with our 3rd pick after trading back to number 30. I would have taken J.K. Dobbins, the top running back, with our first 2nd round pick. Then I would have gotten a defensive lineman, maybe another offensive lineman, maybe a skill position player with that second round pick. And then in the 4th, or 5th round, I would have got Jake Fromm or Jacob Eason, because they were both there in the later rounds. You could have got a quarterback to bring up behind Ryan. Anyway, whatever, dude. But we'll see how it plays out. So far, their first draft is pretty trash from their first year. Let's see if they can improve. But when you compare it to the 3 from Gase's years, it's ridiculous. There are proven guys there. Okay, but let's continue on with what this motherfucker had to say. All right, now that I've given you a lot of the facts, a lot of the hardcore data, okay? However, Tannehill's rise to stardom last season and the hefty contract he received from the Tennessee Titans do little to suggest that supposed quarterback guru Gase got the most out of his signal caller. Again, and I said this earlier, you're expecting him to maximize the dude when he's injured. Because 24 of the games, which is the majority of the games, or a large chunk of the games, right? It was the entire 2017 season, and then a few games in the 2018 season, and then the last 3 games of the 2016 season. So the majority of the games that they were there together, you expected him to maximize his potential when he had a freak injury that's part of football that neither of them could control? Are you fucking stupid? You must be, if you think that he should deserve blame for not being able to maximize the guy when he's fucking rehabbing from an injury. You're a fucking fool, okay? And then especially when you leave out the context that prior to his season with the fucking Tennessee Titans, he was on pace to have one of the best seasons of his fucking career. And because Gase was maximizing his potential, and Ryan Tannehill was a prime reason why we got to the fucking playoffs in 2016. Are you a fucking moron? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. Because either you didn't care to do the fucking research or take the time to find out the truth of all of this. Real quick, also, I'm sorry, I didn't even read off to you, and I'm gonna because I meant to. I didn't even read you off Ryan Tannehill's accolades. Let's take a look at what I gave you his stats. Okay, let's see. Ryan Tannehill holds an NFL record, most consecutive pass completions at 25. He's technically at this point tied with Phillip Rivers and Nick Foles, but they got that in 2018, whereas Ryan Tannehill got it, I believe, 2016, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. It doesn't say here, but you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But he definitely got it before those guys. I want to say it was in 2016. They got it in 2018. Dolphins franchise records. Most pass completions in a single season, 392. That's 2014. Okay, that's his third year as a Dolphin. Most pass completions by a rookie, 282. Highest completion percentage for a career, 62.2. Highest completion percentage for a season, a minimum 500 attempts, 66.4. Most passing yards by a rookie in rookie season, 3,294. Most passing attempts by a rookie, 484. Longest rush by a quarterback, 48 yards. Longest rush by a rookie quarterback, 31 yards. And I'm pretty sure he's still the team's leading rusher for quarterbacks too. It doesn't say here, but I'm pretty sure he is. And look, he actually now holds some Titans franchise records. Highest passer rating in a season, 117.5. Most yards per pass attempt in a season, 9.59. And highest completion rate, 70.3. Some of those were fucking league best records, or league best stats last year. Okay, so it's a fucking complete farce and myth that Ryan Tannehill is not good. And it's absolutely stupid to say that Gase was incapable of maximizing his potential when he was hurt. And it's absolutely absurd to blame his injury on either of them. Anyway, there's no debate about the fact that Gase had the Dolphins trending in the wrong direction. No, there's actually a lot of debate, including the fact that they had their fucking first postseason in fucking forever in his first season, 8 years. I mean, look, he either didn't do the research or he's just choosing to ignore it. Which is why he was fired after the 2018 season. No, he was fired because Stephen Ross perceived them to be going in the wrong direction, even though there was plenty of evidence to suggest to the contrary, and he was just impatient, and also simultaneously because Gase refused to tank the 2019 season just so they could chase a quarterback, apparently one that's very injury prone, because that's the guy that they wanted. Let's see. He then joined the rival Jets, giving Miami fans another reason to dislike him. Whatever. I don't. While Gase didn't single-handedly tank the Dolphins from 2016 to 2018, first of all, he's implying there that they tanked from 2016 to 2018. Again, you might be able to say, I mean, first of all, you couldn't claim that they tanked. That's just unreasonable because, again, they did not institute the basic philosophies of tanking, okay? They did not strip the entire roster and trade guys away for draft capital and cap space, etc., etc. They didn't do those things. So it would be absurd to say that they tanked at all. You could say that they had down years in 17 and 18, but then it's even more absurd because they went 10 and 6 and made it to the playoffs in 16. So while Gase didn't single-handedly tank the Dolphins from 2016 to 2018, that's just an absurdly stupid comment to start with. But then he continues. He did set the stage for one of the more painful seasons in recent Dolphins history. Okay, now that last part really sent me over the fucking edge with this, because he is literally implying that the Dolphins' literal tank job, which he admit to earlier on in this piece of the 2019 season, is Gase's fault. It is his fault that they decided to fire him. I mean, I guess you actually could argue that to some degree, because he actually had the fucking courage and the fucking integrity not to fucking say, I'm going to tank the fucking season. So, okay, there you go. You can say that much, but that's as far as it goes. But, like, it's not his fault that he got fired. It's not his fault that they decided to strip the team and trade everybody away and accrue all that stuff. It's not his fault that they decided to fucking be terrible with play calling and challenges and timeouts and personnel usage and all these other things to put and completely dismantling the team so that they were garbage last year. But he's implying that they were fucking trash last year because of Adam Gase. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, that is the most absurd fucking thing to say. Absolutely most absurd fucking thing to say. That it's Gase's fault that the Dolphins were complete fucking trash last year. But, I mean, it's right on fucking par. Just blame the dude for shit that he has absolutely nothing to do with. He wasn't even part of the Dolphins team last year. So how is it his fault that they were trash? You fucking moron. Anyway. Man, this shit gets me hyped, bruh. And I'm tired of that half of the world, dude. I'm so tired of that half of the fucking world. Just shitty, fucking, horrible, disgusting people that decide they want to ignore facts and truth and reason and logic. And I'm fucking tired of it. Anyway, look, I hope y'all appreciate my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comments section. And of course, as always, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. See y'all soon. Phins up.